Part 3 podcast.
Let's fucking go.
Stephen Malbon.
Oh my goodness.
Let's get right into it.
Put him down for the birdie, dog.
Just a bit outside.
Gang is back together. Somebody give me your fucking putter. Hoard the putt in. I had to make it. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the world famous Part 3 podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Malbon. J.R. Smith is playing golf in Florida. And we have a longtime friend, complete legend on a few tours, all around wonderful guy, husband, father, businessman, caddy, and friend, Mr. Greg Bodine. What
Thank
up?
you, sir. How's it going, brother?
Did I do good with that?
That was great. I love the list. That's a nice intro. I'm happy to be here.
Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. You probably added a couple things. I don't know if I can call myself a businessman yet. I'm still the place hasn't burned down yet, so I'll still take credit for that. But yeah, I'll take it.
Entrepreneur.
Yeah, well,
Let's
that's
go.
a safe one. Yeah.
Well, let's jump right into that one while we're here. What's going on with Evergreen? Tell us about your partner and you and what you guys are doing. I'm obviously following on the social and such, and super excited.
Yeah, it's been good. We not to jump too far ahead, but I had caddied, for a long time on the PGA Tour, and that came to a halt, and I was kind of looking for the next thing back home, with my wife and kids back home. And I felt like caddying was something that was in the past, and I wanted to stay involved with the game of golf. And being in Seattle, the weather is as bad as you think it is, and we get really nice summers, but for 7, 8, 9 months, the weather's terrible. So my thought had always, this is a few years before, that all this was brewing, and I always wanted to start an indoor golf club up here, not just a spot to hit balls, but kind of a lifestyle club that you come and spend a bunch of time at. And so when I got back home from caddying the first go round, I put my feelers out and I talked to a lot of the connections I had in the area. And the guy that kind of came to my attention was a guy named Jermaine Kearse, which football fans know that name a lot. He played for the Seahawks for quite a few years and NFL for 8 or 9 years. And my cousin, Andrew Putnam, who plays on the PGA Tour now, there's a lot of connections here, but Andrew connected me with Jermaine because they play at the same club down in Tacoma, because Jermaine had just retired. He'd broke his leg with the Lions and was done playing, but is a hardcore golfer now. And he was sort of talking to other people about doing somewhat of the same thing. So we went and met at a Starbucks, and the meeting lasted, this is 2021. In April or May, and we lasted for a few hours. We both kind of talked about what we wanted to do and create, and it was pretty much the same thing, kind of a performance-based lifestyle golf club that's indoors. And I'm in the office right now. It's not the coolest part, but we have a few people back in the warehouse hitting balls, and we've got music playing and TVs going. So this is the first location here in Redmond. We're starting up a second one in Tacoma, but just a bunch of TrackMan simulators. We have 8 up here. We'll have 14 at our next one. We have an indoor chipping green. We have a couple lounges. We have a conference room. We just kind of built it, a fitness center as well. We built it to just be a spot where people come and hang out we didn't want people to come in and out. We want people to come and hang out, rooted in the same game that we all love, and build some relationships and some culture. And it's off to a good start.
Oh, man, that's amazing. We, obviously, my family, but Remington is obsessed with golf, and he is playing on the middle school team for Stevenson, which is inside the gates at, in Pebble, right? And their middle school team he's on, they practice at Spanish Bay, and the high school practices at Spyglass, and they all use the Pebble Beach Driving Academy or what have you. But one of the dads, this legend, Rob Skinner, his son's on the JV team. He just built a place called the Lab in Monterey, and it's on one side, it's like crazy gym with every gym gadget you could ever possibly do. Like they have like a, I think 6-person yoga mat, indoor infrared, lessons of stretching and yoga and such in the infrared saunas. They have the chiral joints, all the instruments and everything. And so he basically built it for the college and the high school kids in the area. Then they have,
Yeah.
I think, 4 or 5 simulators, huge indoor chipping, putting, etc. And even upstairs, they have desks so the kids can like do their homework in between.
Yeah.
But it's like when you talk about a hangout, it's like people don't leave. They go, on the weekends, they go after school. Obviously, Pebble, this area, it rains a lot in the winter. And I think even during the AT&T this year, it was ripping rain and, hail and everything else in the weather. But Victor and JT and I don't know, 2 others, they went and they stayed in there for like 8 hours. It's like raining. It's like not hard for 8 hours to go by when you can chip, putt. They have every instrument. I'm sure you guys have that chipping and putting at Green area.
Yeah, we have putt view, and then we have, a short game area with a bunch of spots to chip around. So you go play some games with your buddies, whether it's 21 or that's the thing is there's several spots in this area where you can go hit balls indoors, but we kind of just took it to the next level when it came to just a spot to hang out. Like you said, I love how they have a spot where you can come and do homework, because we have a conference room here. We have a lounge in the middle of the warehouse. And a lot of the time kids or parents will use that when they're waiting for their son or their daughter, or if kids are doing homework, or a lot of people will come in here and work from the club. We have several people that come in and they'll get here at 10 o'clock and stay till 3 or 4 o'clock. This is people in their 30s and 40s, and they just rather work from the lounge here than at their office and go hit a few balls in between, in between meetings and all that. So yeah, it's a new, obviously we're not a golf course, but we also keep it really casual. I know that's your style as well. It's my style. I don't think I've worn pants to work for the last 2 years. I always wear like joggers or some basketball shorts and hoodies and stuff like that. So we just try to keep it really low key and create a little bit different vibe when it comes to golf in this area.
Yeah, so Greg and I met when he was caddying for Tony Finau. We were working on projects with Nike Golf. Malbon Golf was working on projects. So we had a retail store with a simulator, etc., on Fairfax. And I think probably the first time we met was when you and Tony came to the shop and we were like screen printing shoes or something or another. I think there's some photos of you and Tony in the shop.
Yeah, I remember, I think the first time I actually met you was that week, but you had played in the Pro-Am with him on Wednesday. And is the baseball? I'm not great with baseball names, but it was one of the best players in the league right now.
Yeah.
He plays for the Rockies now.
Yeah, I don't know his name. Maybe
Nelson
Alvarez,
Arenado?
something. Yeah, exactly.
Something like that. But anyways, I remember a lot of people were following our group, and I realized after the first hole or two that they weren't really there to see you or Tony. They were there to see this guy, and did a quick Google search and realized how good of a player he was. So it was fun to watch you guys play.
Yeah, and Q was in our group. Schoolboy
right,
Q was in our group. And so the only reason I knew who the guy was because Q is on his Instagram talking shit. And he's like, y'all act like I don't know the most high paid baseball player ever. I'm playing golf with the richest baseball player ever, you bitch. He's being Q on it.
So a quick story about Q is Jermaine Kearse, my partner here, and Q know each other well. And Schoolboy came up for his daughter, I believe, had a soccer tournament here in the summer, and he was looking for a place to play golf for the day because she went and had like games from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And so me, Q, and Jermaine all went out to Sahali. I won't go into how that round went because Sahali is one of the most difficult courses in the world. It's a tough track to play, especially if you're not doing great off the tee. But it was cool to see him because that was just a couple years ago, and I hadn't seen him since, I don't know, was that 2017 or 18? Probably 2017 when we were all paired together. But yeah, that was a fun day. There's some pro-ams can be long, and it's no offense to the guys, it's just part of the gig. But that was a fun day to kind of have you guys in his group, and everyone got along really well, and a lot of good golf too. So that makes the pro-am days much more fun because when everyone knows how to play.
Yeah, I remember that day I was hitting the ball good, and Tony's like, "Damn, you're a gamer. You striking the ball." Like I hit like a 5-iron out of a bunker, like 4 foot or something. Like I was hitting shots I don't hit.
Yeah, no, it feels great though in front of those people. I mean, I don't know, you're probably pretty cool and calm and collected, but a lot of people you see in those pro-ams, man, some of those you feel bad because and they'll go pay money to do this, and you're just like, holy smokes, like this looks like you're just terrified out of your mind, and it looks you're playing like you are as well, but I don't know. At the end of the day, maybe they don't care too much about what kind of score they shoot. They get to go play with guys like Tony and Bryson and all that. So,
yeah, Q was like, "What the fuck's going on with you, dude? You never play this good." I'm like, "Well, buddy, I'm playing with fucking Tony Finau. Like, watch this. It changes it a bit." And we had Remy with us too. Do you remember Remy? We teed him up.
Yes, I remember that vividly, and that's what's been so bizarre. Like I remember running into you in Chicago. This is probably 5 years ago, and then I think once since then. So I haven't seen you too often, but I track you and your family on Instagram and all that, and it's just bizarre to watch how big your boys are getting. Because that year, like I said, I think it was 2017. So how old was he? Was he just literally like 4 or 5, 6?
Yeah. He's 12 now, and so he's
5 or 6.
Yeah, he's like 5.
Yeah, I love that though, because that's what I kind of try to do with. I have 2 boys. I'm trailing you a little bit. They're 5 and 7 now, but I love that you did that because A, it's something he's not going to forget, and B, it kind of puts him under the gun and gets him out there and gets him in an uncomfortable space. And whether he fails or he succeeds, it's just, those are the little good life lessons to teach our boys as they're growing up.
Yeah, it's amazing when you, just as a father, like, everyone has some addictive personality in them or something, right? So like Remington, we teed Remington up from like 90 yards out, gave him the driver. I think it was on like 15 or 14 at Riv, whatever that par 5 is. We teed him up about 100 yards out.
Yeah.
Or 13.
11.
11. Yeah, 11. We teed him up on 11, and he hit it like 2 foot. It almost like went in. It like looked in the hole, like right in front of you and Tony. And then we teed him up on 10 as well, and Kelly James was like talking shit about how much better he is than me or something, and like people clapping for you and all that stuff. But when you're 5 years old and you're getting the thrill of like ripping a drive and having 10 grown-ups or 100 grown-ups clap for you, it's like that's a good addiction to get at an early age.
Yeah, it just gives them so much positive reinforcement when it comes to the game. And then even like I'm assuming someone got it on tape or whatever, but in 10 15 years when he's in his mid-high 20s and you can pull out a video back in the day, and Tony, who knows, by that time Tony might have 15 wins and 3 majors and might just be this legend of the game. And it's like, here's a video of you as a 5 or 6 year old hitting in front of him. Like that kind of stuff is just priceless,
Yeah, we did those Malbon on the range things for the PGA Tour, and I had to do 3 or 4 of them, like through FedEx Cup or something. And that's when we were in Chicago. I had them with me, but like the first one, they're like telling me like, go ask a stranger pro golfer like what club you're hitting. I'm like, dude, he doesn't want to talk to me. Like, that's not like, I don't know. I don't care who it is. Like, they're going to be really weirded out if I walk behind him and say like, hey, so are you hitting, are you like forward pressing your hands? Like, what am I going to say to the guy? The guy's like, fuck off, get away from me. Like, they're already freaked out because of the media. And all of a sudden there's 3 cameras and some guy with a beard standing behind him. It's like, you can't make them more uncomfortable. So I'm like, let's just bring Remy with me. If I bring Remy, it will humanize them more when Remy walks up and asks, anybody like, hey, are you hitting a 7-iron? It's like, oh yeah, little buddy, how you doing? What's your name? Exactly. Like immediately it just changes it. And then once Remy like warms them up, then I can step in and talk too. So basically Sentiment is my little bird dog to get it going. But
Perfect.
We were playing at a tournament. We have these like bucket clubs tournaments, and there was like a couple hundred people on the first tee. And I'm like, Remy, go do the first send off. Like, you're going to hit the first shot, and then it's a shotgun start. Everyone gets in their carts or whatever. And I remember he was probably like 9 or something. And someone's like, are you nervous? And he's like, I got over 2 million views on Instagram. Why would I be nervous in front of 200 people? Like,
that's great though, because it's the situations you put them in when they're younger, and it's like it's tough to learn when you get into your teenage years and all that. But like I said, I'm trying to do the same thing, and I noticed that with you and your boys. But yeah, like when I did see you in Chicago, I remember it was on that downhill number. Is it 16 or 17? But yeah, I like how you brought him out, and I didn't realize the idea behind it, but that's very smart. It's like those adults that ask for autographs compared to the little kid. It's a little easier to walk up to you don't have to lie and say this is for your son or whatever, for your daughter. You just go straight to the kid. It makes it a lot more normal.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's good. I've been seeing you as well, following with the kids and all. And I think that's just like, taking them with you as much as you can and just throwing them right in the mix. And like, they have such confidence when they're little. And I think we all do. And then at some point you get like, wounds and scars. And like, when you see like someone go out on tour early, it's like the guy's never three putted on tour. So like, of course he's not thinking about three putting, but then when you do three putt a handful of times, all of a sudden, every time you walk over it, you're like, oh, don't three putt again.
Yeah. They're human. Yeah. As much as they look like machines out there, they are human, which is something that I feel like, the normal fan probably forgets, but enough of those guys to where it's, they are, like I said, they look like machines and they play like machines sometimes, but you'd be shocked about some of the stuff that's going through their head. Amateurs like our kids, but even professional golfers.
Totally. Like even like when Jordan Spieth was like the best putter in the world. Remember like when he would make 15, 20-foot putts just all day. And I remember looking at it.
A quarter of them. It was at at 1 out of 4 he would make from like 20 feet, which is absurd.
Yeah, and I remember looking at his face like before he would putt it on TV, and I'm like, oh, he's making this. Like you could just see it in his face. Like it's like, of course I'm going to make another 20-foot putt. Like it's not even a thought in his brain. And then you see when golfers go through the other side where they start not putting well, et cetera. And you see Jordan walk up to a 20-foot putt and I look at his face. I'm like, he's not making this.
It just looks uncomfortable. Yeah, you could tell.
Yeah.
I mean, Tiger avoided it for, from 97 to 2009. And then after that, even he was, to go 12 years and not, Tiger didn't really have an off 3 or 4 months. He never went more than a half year without winning a couple times for 12 years. And even he proved that he wasn't immune to it. And it's guys like Jordan, JT, Bryson, for example. That's the thing about golf. It's like you see these basketball players or football players and like, obviously we don't see all the ups and downs of their career. And like, those are difficult sports to go through as well. But like with golfers, it's like everyone, it seems like goes through 1 or 2 of those really low moments for a couple of years, or even if it's for 6-7 months, but it's difficult.
Jibo, tell me about how nuts it must have been to watch, but you're in the group, you're on the bag for Tony. Tiger Woods hadn't won. He'd gone through all the ups and downs in the world, or at least the downs recently, and came back and won at the Masters. Like, what a trip that must have been.
Yeah, and a lot of people forget that Tony finished probably about 30, 40 minutes before Tiger, and he was in second place behind Francesco. But the thing about that year is that there was really bad weather on Sunday, and so they had to go off in threesomes. And so right after Tony finished, they announced, hey, we're going to go off in threesomes. And Tiger had just birdied, I think, the par 5, 15. So he must have finished about an hour before. And then I remember seeing, like, if he goes par, it's going to be Francesco, Tony, and Tiger. And if he were to have bogeyed, it would have been like someone else. Like, I think it was Brooks. Like, it's still such a cool group regardless. But obviously Tony and I were like, this could be epic, because you don't know, like, the thing is, it's cool enough to get paired with Tiger in a normal tournament. It's cool to get paired with Tiger on a Sunday. It's really cool to get paired with Tiger on a Sunday in a major. And it's really cool to get paired with Tiger on a Sunday at a major at Augusta in the final group. So I realized like the implications of this round, but then you don't even realize, obviously don't know like what's going to happen is going to happen. And we, to answer your question, it was, I will say this, and I've said this to a few people, like, I know Tony felt comfortable. I mean, I'm the caddy, and I felt pretty comfortable too, but I feel like Tony was ready to go. A lot of people forget, like, they think, oh, what if you were to throw me into the middle of this group? Like, you and I, we're both decent golfers, and we think to ourselves, like, gosh, what would we do if we were in this group with Francesco and Tiger in the final round? It's like, yeah, we'd shoot 100 and we probably would barf by amen corner. But at the same time, for these guys, there's a long buildup of how these guys go through it. Tony was a great junior. He played in Junior Worlds. Eventually, he had a couple of reporters asking him questions, and then he had a TV crew following him. Then he went on the Corn Ferry, and then he had a Golf Channel interviewing. Like, there's this crescendo of like, it's not like he's just thrown into the fire, thrown into the fire and has no idea how to handle himself. Like, it felt like he was supposed to be there. But then it is like, I remember, I'll start on 12T because Francesco hit it in the water. He was first to go, and we were all bunched right together. Francesco hit it in the water. I think he had a 2 or 3 shot lead at the time, 2-shot lead over Tiger and Tony. And Tiger goes up next and hits this like pull chunk toe 9-iron that barely covers the front left side of the green. Like,
Yeah,
no,
perfect.
I mean, hey, he gets it done. Like, the guy, he always says like win ugly. And I remember when he hit the shot, I was like, this is a gross looking shot. But like, hey, he was the one that was walking on the, they have that video of him walking to the other side of the bridge, and Tony and Francesco and us are dropping on the other side.
Yeah.
And then, so like, I understand, like, I'm not trying to talk trash, but I just remember thinking after that round, I was like, he was nervous and like, but he just knew where he couldn't miss it. Like, he was like, I'm going to pull hook this long left 30 yards before I leave it 1 yard right of the flag. And he kind of did that, and he chunked it, and it still covered the front. But anyways, and then it was kind of funny because when those 30 seconds between, it was Tiger hit the green and Tony was supposed to go, in my head, I'm like, this is unbelievable. This is going to turn into a Tony and Tiger like showdown on the last 6-7 holes at Augusta, because we have 13 and 15. Like, obviously Tiger plays par 5s well, but Tony, this is, I mean, he's still extremely long, but this is when Tony's hitting 7 and 8 irons into those par 5s. So I'm like, we have the advantage on those par 5s. And then, about 20 seconds later, he hits a 9-iron. That's, I'll tell you what, in the air, you can go back and watch it. In the air, it was right at the flag. It was right at the flag. And when it was in the air, I actually was like more excited than fearful, because I thought to myself, if this covers on line with the flag, the right edge of the green, it's going to be at worst 7-8 feet. And now we're going to have a short birdie putt. Tiger's way on the left side. Francesco's in the water. Like, this is perfect.
Here we go.
Yeah. And then but people don't really notice is that the slope just short of the green on the right side of 12 is pitched like 45 degree, like a 45 degree angle. So when they show the camera from behind, the ball flies and it disappears. Like, you can't see the ball. Like, you might see it kind of jump up a little bit and then it just disappears. But any ball that lands on that 45 degree angle, kind of piece of grass just right of the bunker, you're 2-3 yards from stuffing it to that flag. Like,
Yeah.
because it's so, it's 5 yards long this way, but because it's like this, it's basically 3 yards deep. And so if it flies another yard and a half, we have 8 feet for birdie, but obviously it didn't. It went in the water. And then, Tiger just did his thing. A lot of people don't notice too. You can go back and watch this. He thought on 13T that he hit it in the woods. So his foot slipped, and you can look, he hits it, and the ball went through 40 yards of trees, the top level. So it's not, it didn't get extremely lucky, but I think if you would have asked him when he hit the golf ball and saw it take off, it started way left and started drawing way more than he wanted it to. And he got, we got a little bit of a lucky break. I mean, he hit a pretty good shot overall, but when he slipped, it just took it a little bit left and it popped through the other side. And he ended up having like a 7-iron to the green. And then he just does what he does. He hit it to 1.5 feet on 16. That was the loudest. I mean, I've caddied at Ryder Cups, President's Cups. I guess 18 at this last U.S. Open is probably really close, or if not, takes the cake. But up until then, when that ball was rolling back towards the hole on 16 on Sunday, that was the loudest I've ever heard a crowd when it comes to golf, or a hole of golf. What's funny is he had Joe LaCava read it. He had like 1.5 feet below the hole, and it was pretty much a straight putt. And he looks over at Joe, and he's like, "Joey, can I get eyes on this?" And Joe even looked over at me for a quarter second. He's like, "What the?" He's like, "This guy really wants me to read this putt." But it just kind of shows, like, you can't just take anything for granted there. And once he birdied 16, everyone kind of knew what was going to happen. And we both parred 17 to where we were 3 back, I believe, going to the last hole. And me and Tony looked at each other on 18. We're like, this is really going to happen. And we kind of like turned into spectators for 5-10 minutes, and then Tony had like an 8-foot dribbler for par above the hole, and then we both kind of were like, let's make sure this goes in the hole, and he ended up making it. Tony had a good comeback the last 5 or 6 holes, made a few birdies, and ended up finishing like 4th or 5th. But yeah, just to find myself on that green in that sort of environment and situation was wild. Like we're talking about earlier, like the video you could show your boy about hitting in front of Tony and all the stuff that you'll have to show him as time goes on. It'll be really cool to show my family and boys as time goes on. You know, this is what Dad was doing back in the day when you were little.
Sick.
And there's Tiger winning his major, and yeah, definitely one of the top 3 highlights of my caddying career, even though it had nothing to do with my player. I mean, he had a good week, but Tiger's Tiger.
Yeah, I can't imagine how loud it was on 16 with all the water and like just.
I thought it was going to
echoes.
go in. It looked like, from our angle, it looked like it was going to go in. I think it missed like 8 inches above the hole, if you want to look at it that way. But yeah, I was like, I literally thought to myself as the ball was rolling back towards the hole, I'm like, these people are going to bring the stands down because of like how chaotic, because that would have given them like a 3-shot lead, and to hole out on that. Yeah, it would have been. But still, I'll take, even, you know, if Tony wasn't going to win, that was the next best case scenario. No offense to Francesco or Brooks or Poulter, any of those guys.
Yeah.
To witness history was special. Super thankful.
I imagine for Tony too is in the same boat. It's like, well, I'm not going to win. Like, okay, let's just, Tiger's going to win. Like, it's good for everyone in a sense.
No, for golf for sure. Yeah, like that resurgence he had was huge. Like, I'm not sure what your thoughts are, but I felt like golf was struggling from 2012 to 2016. And, you know, you had a lot of good young players coming up. You had Jordan, you had Jason Day, JT, all those guys battling it out. But at the same time, I felt like, you know, I've been a golf fan my whole life, and just when Tiger is not there, everything changes. I mean, Tiger was making headlines for 2 years straight about if he was going to commit to the major at last second. They'd have a Tiger watch, like, is he going to commit and come out and play injured? And but yeah, to have him back and to be caddying for Tony during those years made those years that much more cool.
Absolutely. So then you and Tony chilled. You went back to Seattle, family, had some babies, getting that all going, that side of your life. Started the Evergreen, and then what happened? You get a call from Bryson. I have no clue of how this happened. I just know all of a sudden I saw you on the bag for Bryson, and I'm like, let's go.
So the PGA at Oak Hill was the second week I was on with him, and that week I got a lot of people texted me. But yeah, Tony and I split. We had a great run of I think it was over 6 years, and had a bunch of success. And I'll always, you know, Tony will always be one of my guys, and I still talk to him a good amount even today. And then, once that settled, I was just kind of ready to see what life had back home for me. Cause, you know, my first few years with Tony, I was traveling 36, 37 weeks a year. Tony was playing 32, 33 weeks. I would go down to Phoenix for a week in the middle of the winter to work with him and Boyd. I'd go to his foundation event, and that's not even counting the few events or the few weeks that I would go on vacation myself with my family. And so it was a grind, and it was, you know, I loved every week of it, and I got to experience and see some awesome things and work for one of the best players in the world. And, but yeah, I was kind of that point where I'm like, I think, you know, this is that door's opening for me to kind of see what life has in store back home. And so I started Evergreen, like I touched on earlier, with Jermaine and I, and, we opened this Redmond location December of 2022. And the first 6 months, we're just getting, you know, Jermaine and I have no small business experience. So we're here working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, just trying to figure out what we were doing. We were joking earlier today how like a normal person probably could have done that in like a normal 9 to 5 type job. But that speaks to Jermaine too, is like we're in the trenches together. Like I kind of needed to find a place to come back and provide for my family and all that. And I needed to find what was next. Jermaine could have retired and played golf every day the rest of his life, and been very comfortable doing so. But it just kind of shows you how much he loves golf, and he plugged in with me and poured a lot of time and energy and money into it. And so we got this place going, and then it's actually pretty, you know, I haven't told this to a lot of people, but it was a pretty bizarre situation how it all worked out. So yeah, we had a couple younger boys, and we were working on having a third, and my wife was almost halfway through her pregnancy. We had found out she got pregnant in the winter this is the winter of or January of 2023. We get through the first trimester and we get to the, second trimester, and my wife tells me that she feels like something's going on with her body, with the pregnancy that's not good. And so we go to the hospital, and I promise this all ties in. Our fear was that she had miscarried, and but we just wanted to make sure. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, or it might not mean that. So we went there, and what's bizarre about kind of how all this like transpired in my life is I always, I'm a faith-driven guy. I trust in who God is. I believe in Jesus, and I really look for doors opening and doors closing, and I trust Him to kind of like lead me in my life through that way. And this was bizarre because Bryson actually called me at the hospital when we were, I'm at this point right now where I think I'm having my third child, and I'm starting up this indoor spot, and my next chapter starting. And one day, the day before that, I thought that I was going to have a third kid and be at home for the rest of my life. And I was really happy with that. Like I was really looking forward. It was a tough transition to get back home, and there's a lot of change going on. But I was very okay with seeing what I had in store back home and being with my kids every day and seeing my wife every day. And we go to the hospital, and they confirm kind of what our worst fear was. And I know it happens a lot, and it happens way too often for how traumatic of an experience that it is. Sure enough, they said, you miscarried, and it was it's far enough along to where she had to get a D&C and all that. And so Bryson calls at the hospital, and I don't share any of this with him. Like, he's just reaching out and wondering where I'm at. I'd caddied in his group several times when I was with Tony. And I think I ended up giving him a call back a few hours later after me and my wife got home, and kind of just tried to process everything that was going on. And then after a couple hours, I was like, oh yeah, Bryson called and wants me to caddy. And so I give him a call back. Yeah, I give him a call back, and we talked for about another hour, and he goes, hey, like, I'd love for you to be in Tulsa in 4 days. This is like on a Wednesday or a Tuesday. And so I'm just like, it's a lot of good things, but at the same time, I was, my brain was in a blender. I talked to my wife in that situation. I just talked to a lot of people. Me and my wife had no idea what to think. My wife was like, okay, 5 hours ago, we learned we lost a child. She was happy with me being home. I was happy with being home. But Liv also was interesting because I couldn't do the PGA Tour thing anymore. I'd had good players ask me to caddy for them on the PGA Tour, and it was tough to say no, but I was just like, I can't do 30 plus weeks again with the situation I'm in with my family. So all that to say is, we went and talked with a couple mentors of mine. We talked to my parents, we talked to her parents, because we were like, we can't think for ourselves right now. Like, is this something that we need to do? And like I said, I just felt like it was a door that got opened when another door slammed shut. Obviously, with the child and all that, we were looking to get a new house, and we live in a small little rambler. And so we had this, this plan in place that we thought was the plan that was best for us. And obviously, we found out that day that everything was going to change. And I didn't know. I went into the Bryson thing. He was playing really poorly. He even said, and I respect him and his agent for this, he's like, dude, I'm lost. He's like, I have no idea what I'm doing with my game. Like, I think he even used the words like rock bottom and stuff, but he's like, I promise you, I'm grinding as hard as I ever have. You know what kind of player I am. You know what kind of worker I am. And I was, he took a chance on me too. I'd never caddied for him before, and he just had seen me in the groups that I was paired with him. And so we both kind of were in a really interesting spot when it came to, our lives. And he talked about that in his presser at the US Open as well. After the final round, we were both in very awkward times of our lives, and we just kind of took a chance. And I didn't know if I'd go out there for a week or two and I'd hate it every second of it. I don't know if I'd be caddying for Bryson when he's 45. And, obviously looking back 14, 15 months ago, it's gone really well. He started to play really well. He got this new equipment that's changed his life. He's won a handful of live events. He obviously the US Open last month went really well. And so, I'm thankful that that door opened and that I walked through it. Obviously, the situation that all happened was terrible. I wish, I would go back and change it for the latter anytime I could. But we kind of made something out of what was a really sticky situation.
That's amazing, dude. Thank you for that, for sharing that. I can't even imagine. It's funny. It was making me think back to when, like, I heard a story with Tony or something where Tony was like about to have a baby and calling his parents and saying, like, come to the hospital. And I guess his mom died at like the exact time or right?
Yeah. So Tony,
Wild.
yeah, that's an absurd story. And that's part of the reason why Tony is who he is today.
Totally.
So Elena gave birth to their eldest son Drace, and the same day his mom passed away in a car accident. And I could be getting this wrong, but I believe that they actually were at the same hospital. So
What a
talk
wild
about
one.
talk about like two. I mean, you have a birth of your firstborn, and then which is like obviously the joy and like everything that brings, but then the grief because it's like it wasn't like an old age thing.
His
His
mom.
mom passed away, and she
Yeah.
was I forget how old she was, but obviously she had plenty of time left, and he he's shared that story a few times now, and there's some articles out to where if I don't want to speak too much on it because I don't want to get any of the details wrong, but at the same time, I know he's spoken about it, some since. And I think that speaks to kind of who Tony is and how he had to grow up quick. And that's where I think that's one of the reasons why I think he made professional golf. He didn't go to college and he turned pro early. And, he had to grow up really fast for a lot of different reasons, between having a child and having a tragedy like that with his mom and trying to play professional golf when he was 17, 18 years old. And so, yeah, that was, he told me that story a couple weeks into when I was working for him. And, it's tough to believe, but unfortunately, yeah, that's exactly how it went down.
I think it just goes back to faith and just saying, like, I know, like, faith over fear and knowing that, like, look, this is happening and it's like I can't change what's happening.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
you're just, you're the, as the dad and the husband, you're just called to be the leader in a time like that. And it was probably when I felt least capable of leading because I had just got off of starting a startup company, a startup that had no business, we white knuckled it through and figured it out, but, and then losing a child prematurely and then having Bryson, there was, the one thing my wife, thankfully she supported me going back out and was like, Liv gave me the chance. That's why I'm so thankful for Liv is because like it's 14 events and then he's in the 4 majors, but like my kids are going to come out with me 5 or 6 times this year. And there's 18 events total. So it's like I go from being gone 35 weeks a year to now I'm only apart from them for about 10 or 12 weeks a year. And so Liv makes caddying doable for me. It's what I love. It's what I've always known what to do. I've done it since the year I graduated college for my cousin Andrew Putnam. Yeah, so it was an odd time in my life and kind of got through on adrenaline for the time being. And then honestly, I actually hit a wall a couple months after that and just mentally and emotionally. I just flew home from the UK. We went to Spain where he almost won. He finished second there to Taylor Gooch. Then we flew to the UK for the next week. And the week after that was the Open. And I went to the UK and I was walking on the course on Monday and I honestly just broke down and I called my wife and I'm like, I'm not supposed to be here. Like I'm fried, like mentally, physically, emotionally. And so Bryson, I got to give him a shout out too, because I literally dipped in the middle of a tournament week of, I literally text him. I go, hey, this is what's going on. Like he knew about the miscarriage and all that. And I had some other stuff going on back home with other family members and all that. And to where I just was overwhelmed and I was like, I'm not supposed to be in the UK right now. I'm supposed to be at home with my kids and my wife and being the support that I can be for them. And also just getting myself right. Like, so I I called him. I'm like, hey, like, I hate to catch you off guard. Like, I know this is the Monday of UK. I literally flew in on the plane with him 4 hours ago. I'm like, I got to go home and got to figure some stuff out. And I took that week off. I didn't even show up for the Open Championship. And Bryson I gave him some details of what was going on, and he just checked in with me every few days and was like, hey, like, I'm not here to figure out when and if you're coming back, but I just want to know that you're okay, that your family's okay. Like, so he's been, like I said, it's gone incredibly well for us. You know, we butted heads, all that sort of stuff. We make a lot of important decisions throughout tournaments and the years and all that, but he's been super respectful of me when it comes to just our relationship on the course, but even more so when it comes to like me and my family. And he could not understand that because he's single. He doesn't have kids. So he could be like, what's the big deal? Like, leave your kids the season's only 18 weeks, have them out for 5-10 weeks, and then you're home with them the other 35. But he understands that family comes first, and he's been an awesome support for me. Just like I said, we both entered this partnership in a really odd time, and I hit a wall, and I came back. I texted him during the Open, before the Open started. I said, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it to the Open. I'm still just working through a lot of things with me and my wife and my family and kids. And then, I had 3 weeks. Liv had 3 weeks off after the Open, and I'm like, if I can just get past the Open, get through 3 weeks off, kind of just work on some things myself. Greenbrier was the next week, and so I went to Greenbrier, and I honestly didn't know. I thought there was a pretty good chance that I might just fly back home, just because, like I said, I was kind of a wreck mentally and emotionally. Didn't really know where my place was, and I ended up going, and as you can see this right here, this is the caddy bib and the flag from 18, and he shot 61-58 on the weekend to win by 7. So that was like another kind of like feather in my cap, or however you want to say it. Is like, I felt like I made the right decision going back out there. Not that his success determines like if it's the right decision or wrong decision, but just the fashion that it happened for him to make a 40-foot putt in the rain on 18 to win by 7 and make history. I was like, okay, it's one of those faith things again, where I was like, you're in the right spot. You're doing the right thing. Like, I know it's difficult, but this is the plan. God kind of speaking to me, like, this is the plan I have for you. Like, you had your plan and it didn't work out the way, but I promise this plan's going to work out just as good, if not even better.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
58 in the rain. And then that was like, I remember like with all the like hate, these guys can't play, whatever. And then I remember that it was like Bryson shoots 58. It's damn.
He's been on a heater now for a while. Like, it's unfortunate he didn't get on the Ryder Cup and all that, but I get it. Like, it's tough to really get a gauge of how these guys are playing. But Bryson, obviously in the majors, he finished fifth at Augusta, second. He almost won the PGA. And then obviously he won the Open, US Open, to where it's like, people know what kind of player he was, and they kind of see the kind of player he is now, arguably playing a lot better than he ever did back on the PGA Tour. And it's like, Bryson, I think we're 8th on the Live points list, to where it's like, I understand, it's harder to track, it's harder to watch. But at the same time, I can only speak for what I see out there first-handed, and there's a lot of really good golf being played out there. It's not like Bryson's playing terrible golf. He's playing a lot of good golf, maybe not scoring as good as he wants to, but he's had a handful of top 5s and 10s, and there's just a lot of good players on in that league. And that was the first event where people kind of had to like recognize what was going on, because the other thing is the PGA Tour had tournaments at Greenbrier for years, and so it's not like, they played this goat track that was easy in a pitch and putt. I mean, Bryson hit driver on a lot of holes and made it look easier than it probably should have been, but still, to go shoot 61-58 on the weekend there, have a 59.5 scoring average on the weekend, that was something else.
That obviously had a lot of your doing in it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you made it back.
Yeah, it was my first, like I said, my first event back after my self-induced break, but it all worked out somehow, some way. So happy it worked out the way it did.
It's funny, so when we met, Tony was Remington's favorite golfer, and by far now Bryson is, and Bryson's always been super sweet to him too. Like back on the day, he was like share a Snickers bar with him on tour, or just like, he's like a kid too, he's like,
Bryson's,
he can like get on the,
he's a 15-year-old in a 30-year-old's body. So
yeah, exactly. So, but now obviously YouTube and Remington is just obsessed with golf, and there were actually 3 or 4 of their kids that he plays golf with that are in the middle school, high school teams. And I asked them who their favorite golfer is, and these are like from 12 to 15-year-old kids, and every one of them said Bryson.
Yeah,
which is just, it's cool. Like,
he's it's interesting because like I said, I've been around Bryson since 2016 or so. And I feel like Bryson's one of those guys where, and he would be the first to admit, and he has admitted that like he has said and done some things that I don't think he would say he regrets them, because it really kind of shaped the way his life has transpired from now. But he's said and done stuff that he shouldn't have. I guess that's the way to put it. And but at the same time, there's people that are bad people that try to look good, and I feel like maybe all of us kind of know a couple of those people. But there's really good people that tend to paint themselves in a bad picture every once in a while. And especially if you have the media, painting a narrative and all that, to where I feel like what I've realized since being around him for 30, 40 hours a week the last 15 months is like Bryson is an incredibly good person that occasionally will say and do some stuff that, I mean, not recently, I'm talking about before even really my time, occasionally do and say some stuff that shoots himself in the foot. And he's, like I said, he's admitted to that. But I remember at the PGA, this is when I was like, there's 2 things recently that I was like, cause I knew Bryson well enough to where these like really caught me off guard since I started working for him. The first one was we were at the PGA on the practice green, and this guy was wearing him out. I mean, that's the thing about golf is like football, baseball, or whatever. It's like you have some chirping, but at least you get a break, whether you go out to the outfield or you're in the dugout, or if, like people can't be in your ear, but in golf tournaments, they can literally get 20 feet away from you and follow you. Yeah, like they can, it's not like put up with this for 4 minutes and I'm done with it. It's like, no, like this is going to last for 5 hours. And he had this guy, is earlier in the week, it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday, and this guy just like wearing him out, saying a lot of childish, stupid things that were dumb. And after about 5 minutes, Bryson just pulls out a golf ball and he signs it, and he walks over and gives the guy a signed golf ball. And me and Connor, his manager, looked at each other, were like, and we looked at Bryson, and he was like, I don't know, figure it's better than anything else. And the guy looked around, and he literally looks at the ball, and he's of course got his 5 or 6 buddies that he's trying to look cool for. And he looks at the ball, and he's like, he just said, literally goes, I feel really stupid right now. And I was like, yeah, maybe I just thought of this. Maybe that was Bryson's point, but I don't think so. I think he was literally just like, I'm going to kill this guy with kindness. And I could be wrong, because I wasn't caddying for him. I didn't know him as well back then. I could be wrong, but I don't think maybe that would have happened in previous years. And that's where I was like, okay, like this is different, like he's still the same person he is, but he's starting to change those little things that kind of will allow people to really see who he is. And even on the first tee at the US Open, usually Bryson's very, very linked to results, like all those guys. Like it's really tough to not identify yourself with the results and kind of get your self-worth as, what score did I shoot today? And we were walking to the first tee at Pinehurst on Sunday, and I think we had just put the bag on the tee, and he looks over, he's like, dude, whether we shoot 66 or 76 today, he's like, everything's going to be okay. And I was like, I don't know if that would, I was like, okay. Cause one thing with Bryson is, if he doesn't get in his own way, like people are starting to see this now, like Bryson's, I'm not going to say he's better than Scotty or create some controversial topic, but like he's one of the best 3 golfers in the world right now, in my opinion. And he has the potential to be the best and the best for a long time. But a big piece of that is like himself getting out of his own way. And so once he said that on the first tee, this isn't like we're 2 under through 5 and we're feeling good and we have a 6-shot lead. This is before, Rory had just hit a shot close from the first fairway, and he ended up making birdie. It's like things were still high strung, and he just looked over. He said something like that. I'm like, dude, that's something like I'm supposed to be feeding you, not you're supposed to be telling me. And after he said that, I was like, I can't tell you if, I'm not a big fan of like, this is our time or his time, because it's whoever shoots the lowest score on 18 is their time. Like no one's destined, in my opinion. So I wasn't like, oh, we're destined or this is our day. I was like, at least I know like he's not going to get in his own way. And for most caddies out there, that's one of the bigger jobs of a caddy is to keep that perspective and to keep them going and get them focused on the shot. And I was like, man, this is, it ended up being a grind because we couldn't hit a fairway, but at the same time, he showed himself. He didn't beat himself, and that's I think one of the biggest reasons why he ended up winning that.
That was amazing to watch, and obviously I'm watching with Remy, and he's fucking jumping up and down. And on 18, what you guys? He pulled his drive on 18.
Well, yeah, and then I didn't realize so the ball was going right at this kind of 45-degree angle, this big corporate tent. The day before, if you watch Saturday's replay, he hits it on the exact same line. It bounces off the tent and goes into like this little sandy dune area, chips like a 56 onto the green and makes par. And it's going on the exact same line as the day before. We get up there and I see like the ball way left, but I still didn't realize it was by roots. So I go over and get a number. By the time I get back, I see that there's a root behind, here's the ball. There's a root right behind it. We're going this way. And there's one on the side too, but the one on the side wasn't as big of a deal. But there was like a quarter of an inch between this root that was almost as tall as the golf ball. And so you have to like hit down. Like, so he took like a 9-iron or something like that. And it was one of those where like, if you were to catch it fat or hit a little bit behind it, he literally could just like ricochet off the root and like miss the golf ball. And so as tough as the shot he had for his third shot, it was really, like that wasn't a good spot to be for our third shot, but like he did a really good job just to advance that out of that native
into
area.
The bunker.
Yeah,
that's insane. And then I think going back to like what we were talking about earlier, like you get addicted to those moments. You get addicted to living for those moments, and like that wedge, that bunker shot. Like talk me through that.
Yeah,
what was it?
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, we obviously saw Rory. I thought Rory actually had missed like maybe a 6 or 7 footer because obviously it was straight downhill or mostly downhill, and it took a long time for the ball to get to the hole. So I saw him putt it, and then it was a couple seconds later to where you hear all the gasp and the people freaking out. And so I was like, man, that was shorter, but like I just figured it was like 6 or 7 feet. So at least that had happened to where we knew that a bogey gets us in a playoff. If Rory makes that putt, I mean, Bryson,
and it changes
everything. So the fact that we just get that little, I mean, Bryson probably hits the same kind of shot. I mean, I've seen him hit enough good shots to where that's the only thing I said to him before he hit it is I figured in that moment, it was, like I said, these guys are human, and I guarantee you at some point in that moment leading up from walking up to the bunker and before he hit the shot that he had some bad visuals go through his head. Like he's not a machine and didn't think about blading it into the clubhouse or chunking it into the bunker. And so I was like, dude, I've seen you get up and down from so many harder spots than this. Like it's just another one of those things, and it's easy for me because I grabbed the bag and scoot off to the side. But it was true. Like, there wasn't a lot. I probably could name like 4 or 5 that might have been the same level of difficulty, but just different, not long bunker shots. But the only difference was obviously one was for the U.S. Open, and one, the other ones that I was referring to were in the middle of the round, and whether it was at other majors or live events. But that's what you try to do, is you just try to make every shot feel like, Tiger talks a lot about that too. It's like, yeah, obviously the circumstances change, but it's still a 52-yard bunker shot, or it's still a little greenside chip, or it's still an 8-foot putt that breaks a cup left to right. Like, the better you can get at just being able to click your brain into training yourself to think of those things in the same way with removing the pressure, the outside expectations, that's what those guys are really good at. Like, even Bryson talked about the 4-footer he had. He was like, a lot of people asked him, like, how nervous were you? And he's like, I was nervous or I had butterflies, but he's like, I just got so locked into like, it's a right center putt. I take this back, Bryson's putting is different. He takes it back a certain length for every, for how long the putt is. So he'll bring it for like a 5-footer. He'll bring it back 4.5 inches. And for a 10-footer, he brings it back 7.5 inches. And so all he did was he watched that. He doesn't look at the ball when he putts either. He just looked at the ball as he brought it, or he looked at his putter as he brought it back 4.5 inches and just tried to go straight back and straight through. He said he was so engrossed into his routine and all that to where he wasn't able to think a lot about what else was going on. but yeah, that was, I've told some people, like, I don't know what it is. I've been really lucky. Just, I find myself in like the most historic moments of golf, at least in my generation, whether it was Tiger's Drew. And then everyone's like, that's the greatest shot in major championship history. And I was thinking, I'm like, they might be right. Like, if it's not the best, like, maybe give me a couple other ones.
Up there.
Yeah. And so,
yeah,
it's been, and obviously as a caddy, you're only a product of your player, and obviously you try to do the best job you can for them. But that's why I'm super thankful for guys like Tony and Bryson, to where, if I didn't caddy for Tony, I'm not caddying for Bryson. So it's funny how it all works out. And, yeah, that was a different moment. And, I finally watched it back like a week or two ago. And yeah, I understand the chaos. It's so chaotic to where I was like, I hope, it'd be nice to see Bryson win a few more majors, and I just hope one of them is a little less chaotic, because like my heart rate, my heart rate was through the roof. Like I remember Xander's caddy saying something about how he wanted to barf on the 18th tee, and I didn't get nauseous at all, but I just remember feeling like my heart racing. I'm like, I feel like it could be a little more low key than this. I like to keep things even keel, but I'll take the result.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're your biggest fans. You obviously, and Bryson, and can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing all this with us.
Yeah.
We'll miss JR, but we'll see you down the road somewhere.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me on. It's great.
How do people follow the Evergreen?
Yeah,
what is
so
the
our Instagram? We have an Instagram as our main thing. It's just at Evergreen Golf Club. We have Evergreen Golf Club. Just a plain Evergreen Golf Club, or Evergreen Tacoma. That's our new location. That will be the largest indoor. I love the spot we're in now. It's 14,000 square feet. It's ridiculous in and of itself, like I described it earlier. But the one we're doing down in Tacoma is 26,000 square feet with 30-foot high ceilings and almost 15 or 14 TrackMan bays. That one's going to be crazy too. So yeah, we make some good content. Me and Jermaine try to goof off every once in a while and keep things light and show the fun side of golf.
Well, last thing before you leave, I heard you have the trophy.
Oh yeah,
the U.S. Open trophy behind you.
Yeah.
Let's see this, baby.
Yeah. 10 seconds. So Bryson, this is true Bryson style. He texted me. Here it is. He texted me a week ago. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to send you the trophy tomorrow." Like last second thing. And it showed up. It's funny. It showed up on my front porch from the FedEx guy. I did have to sign for it. You have to sign for packages. So I did have to sign for this, but yeah, this is the one, I knew a lot about it, but I did more research, and this is the one that's been in circulation since World War II. So like it shows right here, Ben Hogan in 1960. You got Arnold Palmer in Ben Hogan in 1948, Arnold Palmer in 1960. So I went back and looked through all the pictures of all the champions holding this, and it's just bizarre to think, like, you look at the picture, you're like, yeah, it's the same thing. Like, the replicas are cool and all that, but it was cool with Bryson to send this to me. And I've had a bunch of the members at Evergreen and a bunch of friends and family hang out with it. And my 7-year-old Brooks, another thing, like we talked about, like a cool thing to look back on. He might not appreciate so much right now, but he had a big glass of orange juice out of the trophy a couple mornings ago. And so he got one of those extra long straws and was just sipping it. So he'll appreciate that when he gets older, I hope.
Adulting 101. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah. Thanks, brother. Good to see you again, and we'll link up soon.